Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. Blizzard just announced a tremendous amount of class tuning adjustments moving into the next reset. I'll have a link to that video at the end of this one if you want to see the specific details of those changes. However, today's video's primary focus is updating my PvP tier list to predict where certain specializations are going to move and where they're going to land and what my general vibes are of those specializations as far as their performance when it comes to a PvP environment. And as always, if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. Affliction Warlock, this is a pretty easy slap up to S tier. It's basically just getting buffed on its agony damage on the next reset, and it's already doing remarkably well and has decent variety as well between its hero talent builds. I'm seeing Hellcaller a lot more viable, as well as Soul Harvester, so just all around a very solid specialization. However, it is a bit annoying to deal with interrupts, but maybe that won't be as much of an issue with some of the changes to some other specializations. Overall, my vibes for it, though, are very positive, and I would say on like an upward trajectory. Arcane Mage, we basically see nothing for this specialization. Right now, I think it's very hard cast focused, and without multiple schools of magic, it's very easy to disrupt. However, when you can free cast, it's an absolute monster. So I think for me, it's still going to be remaining in about the same spot, which is middle of the pack. Not going to be as new player friendly. Definitely going to be a bit more annoying in Solo Shuffle compared to Battleground Blitz, just based on the ability to free cast. Arms Warrior, somehow you're getting damage buffs. You're losing a little bit of self-healing, which seemed a bit strange to me. I think the Warrior changes were the most strange. You're getting a bit more damage on both of your hero talent builds, but some of your self-healing is coming down. But I still think it's a remarkably powerful specialization. It's a really good one, well-rounded, definitely performing well. Assassination Rogue, on the other hand, you guys did get targeted for some nerfs, specifically around your burst related to Kingsbane and your Apex talents. And without that burst, are you still going to be as competitively viable? That is the big question. I think that you would likely be noticeably weaker with the changes that came through, so I am dropping it from S to A tier. I do think that finishing power, just brute force, was a major contributing factor to your competitive viability in the S tier. So I do think it will fall a bit. We'll have to see. Could be wrong about this. It is a prediction tier list, so I do anticipate to be wrong at least some of these specializations placements, and I will update this as we roll out into the next week. And there could be changes on Monday. Who really knows? We'll have to see, but I do think it's going to be falling a tad bit here. Augmentation did get some attention, and they've actually gave you like a paragraph talking about how they want to make it actually like a viable specialization. They're just giving you a lot of raw throughput for this update. However, Ebonmite, its duration is very small, and if you get crowd controlled, it falls off. So even though the throughput's coming up, I still think it's going to have some major issues with Ebonmite. I could maybe at best squeak it up from D to C, but I still kind of think it's going to be D tier because it's just impossible to maintain Ebonmite. Although it's nice, it's getting some attention, but I just don't think it's enough to really move it too much. Blood Decay, tanks are actually kind of crazy OP when it comes to Battleground Blitz. I encountered quite a few tanks, and they're just like borderline unkillable raid bosses. Blood Decay was one of those. So I'm putting Blood Decay a little bit higher here on the tier list. It actually felt very strong. Guardian Druid felt remarkably strong, so I'm slapping these guys up here. Some tanks did get attention with the tuning changes, but not these guys. They felt really strong in Battleground situations. So if you're a Battleground player and you want to be a tank, some people aren't going to like you, but those are actually really good picks. Beastmaster Hunter is super strong at the moment, just absolutely bulldozing people, and the extra crowd control with Scatter Shot is feeling fantastic for it. So it's a remarkable spec, easy to perform, easy to blast. Definitely one on my radar for being like the most competitive with Mage at the moment. Brewmaster, I don't really see a lot of. It's hard for me to really give it a fair rating. I think it's probably at least somewhat passable. I would imagine that you're unkillable. You have some decent crowd control and knockback effects that you can perform on, but I haven't seen anyone really given a really big run for it. So I think I'm safely just putting it in the middle of the pack. Feral Druid, this is a weird one because I thought it was A tier. Other people thought it was worse than that. It's getting some buffs to its rip. I think it was rake damage as well. And they're trying to increase the diversity of your hero talent pool, but I've seen a lot of main Feral Druids talking about how it's probably not going to be enough. I think it's like 20% more damage on your Ravage ability or something like that. But apparently that's probably not going to be enough. But the flat damage on your baseline abilities is really good. You still have some of the best, if not the best, crowd control of any melee DPS in the game. So if your damage becomes competitively viable alongside that and you're not super squishy, you will be very strong. So I think it's like at least here on A tier, possibly squeaking into S tier on the reset as well. Balanced Druid, I'm actually dropping this one from S tier to A tier. I think its survivability is lower than some of the range DPS towards this S tier category at the moment. I think that survivability is going to be more noticeable, so I'm actually moving this one down a bit. Devourer, Demon Hunter, I kind of think it's fallen off here. I don't really agree with the changes that they're making. I agree with their sentiment that Devourer is tanky in some capacities, but I think targeting their blur damage reduction means that they just die even easier to the things they already die to, but they're still very annoying for the things that they don't die to, which is like dot classes and cleave damage, and it's mostly noted to their self-healing mechanics as opposed to their damage mitigation. I think the nerfs to their blur are going to be noticeable. I think especially with the buffs that we see to some rogue specs that are likely going to uptick their popularity, is that you might have a tough time on Devourer, although they did give you some void ray damage in compensation, so you are going to get a bit more explosive in that window potentially, but I think the survivability is going to be a bit challenging for you, mostly because you don't really offer anything else other than just raw throughput at the moment. I feel like the class could be like fleshed out a bit more with maybe some new PvP talent abilities or something to give you more utility. But at the moment, I think it is probably going to fall a bit. Demonology Warlock, they're taking a risk. They're going after Wicked Reaping, which, according to the Demonology mains, is very important to their viability at the moment, and trying to buff their kind of baseline spells and abilities. While I agree with that direction, I don't know if the numbers are going to be 100% on the spot. You know, like bringing Demon Bolt up 30%, is that enough to compensate for how much they're nerfing your main damage source at the moment? Because if it's not, you'll feel even worse on Tuesday than you do now. And I just feel like that's possible. The only advantage you have going for you at the moment is that you're probably the tankiest melee or ranged in the game, and you have some of the most crowd control. So I'm leaning towards like it's not going to be as bad as Og, going up a little bit from the D to the C. Could potentially go higher. It really just depends if those numbers hit the money or not. Destruction Warlock is one that I think I was overhyping 100%. Like, I logged on it, and I don't know why my Chaos Bolt's only hit for like 100k damage, but it's like, it felt like I was doing nothing, and I was actually very squishy. They are buffing some of your damage, like Chaos Bolt, I think a few other things, but I think you're not that great, actually. So I'm going a little more harshly on this one. And situationally, you're going to feel good in Battlegrounds. Same thing with Arcane. You'll feel good in Battlegrounds where you can free cast, but I think in shuffles and matches like arenas like that, especially with Rogues having an uptick at the moment, and DK surprisingly doing a lot better than I had anticipated, I think it will become increasingly more difficult, so I'm actually dropping my expectation for Destruction. Devastation Evoker, on the other hand, is actually great. It does a lot of damage at the moment. Great sustain. I think it's competitively viable. I think it's kind of like under-repped, honestly, for how strong it's felt since I tried playing it. Like, there's a few specs I've re-rolled to, and I'm in full honor gear. And so if you can tell when a spec is bad because you really can't do anything in full honor gear, but then if you're actually able to win in full honor gear, that spec is probably very strong. And I was able to do decently well with it. I do actually think it's really good. Discipline Priest, getting some buffs on its Shadowman healing and Atonement, which is great. The mana equalization with Holy Priest nerfs to their mana is great as well. I still kind of expect it to be kind of more middle of the pack. Like maybe it could be a bit higher, but I kind of expect it to be more middle of the pack. I'm going B tier for it for right now. Elemental Shaman I would imagine feel like it's up here with Boomkin. With the buffs to Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt. I don't know if Tempest is enough. Honestly, the Stormbringer losing the third instant Lightning Bolt feels really bad, especially for Stormbringer. It seems like Farseer is like pretty much your only viable option, but I do imagine that Ellie is going to be doing at least a bit healthier with the given reset coming in. Enhancement Shaman, I think the spec is not too bad. Decently durable, easier to get uptime with the crowd control changes. Still kind of countered by disarm, still kind of dependent on its cooldowns, although it's one of those specs where it's like that's kind of been its niche, so it would be weird to have that completely changed. But I think it's probably still at least A, maybe B at the worst. Frosty K is getting some substantial buffs to its overall damage with things like Obliterate, which should help you out a lot. This is the one where I'm open to being wrong about it. I'm going more conservatively, putting it on B, but it could definitely be A tier. Moving on to Tuesday. Maybe I should put it on, maybe I should put Enhance here. I don't think Enhance is deserving of that, though. I swear it's not that bad. But Frosty K definitely has some great opportunities to do really well. Fire Mage, again with Mage, they're targeting their damage as opposed to their survivability. So at a top competitive level, they're still going to be probably the best range DPS, but for a beginner level, probably not. And I think that it's honestly one of the biggest issues with the game is that Mage new players just die instantly and can't really figure it out because there's too many abilities that focus around your survivability. If you don't have to cycle them or when to use them and activate them, they require a lot of skill dependent timing. You don't do well as a beginner, but if you're an advanced player, you're like borderline immortal. And that's been a big issue to me in the game, and it's an issue that you shouldn't just do nothing, because it's an issue for new players and an issue for pro players. That should be like the #1 priority issue to address, to make mages tankier for new players but not immortal in the hands of pro players. So I do think Fire Mage will still be very strong. I'm leaning it up onto S tier for now, even despite the nerfs to the Pyroclasm Pyroblast, which is like the hardcaster Pyroblast. I thought Fire Mages were screwing up. I was like, why are they hardcasting Pyroblast? But everybody's re-rolled to that, especially with the new tier set integration for that. They want to try and influence that type of playstyle, which is actually interesting. It's a different way of playing the class, which is nice, as opposed to just being the same old. But its combustion window is still strong, still very durable with the double barriers. Definitely still going to be a go-to, I think. Frost Mage, I am dropping below Fire, but I think it's on its heels. I do think Frost Mage is ready to capture that spot at any moment. Anytime it smells blood in the water, Frost Mage is just waiting, and I'm actually worried that at like a tournament level, we're just going to see Frost Mage outlaw Resto Druid again and just running around being unkillable, and I am concerned about it. While Outlaw Rogue did need some buffs, I am worried about that comp just being completely unstoppable, and there's only one more week of tuning before BlizzCon, and I really hope that BlizzCon is not just going to be Resto Druid, Outlaw, Frost again, running around for 20 minutes against each other in mirrors. I'm really hoping there's going to be some other specs that can create some opportunities. Fury Warrior is actually sleeper. Fury Warrior is very good. It's easily top of the A or bottom of the S tier. This is probably one of the most slept on specs. I'm gonna go for the top of the A tier for right now, but definitely could be sneaking into S. Havoc Demon Hunter, I think, is going to be feeling much more mid moving into this update. Again, targeting the blur is a bit strange, because I still think the main issue is they're still going to be unkillable to the dot classes, but now they're going to die even faster to the things that we're already dying to. Like before, you could like outplay a rogue by pre-blurring. Now it might not matter. You might just die through the blur anyways. So I kind of feel like your weakness is even more apparent, but your strength is still an issue with the way that they decided to go about Demon Hunter. So I think it's likely to feel very mid. Holy Priest most certainly will be falling at least to A tier. Big nerfs towards its overall healing throughput, which were absolutely necessary. It was just absolutely clocking out some major numbers that other healers couldn't even come close to. In my opinion, it's a healer that should have been hotfix nerfed, because you don't really know what the game state is like, because these DPS specs are fighting against this, but then against other specs it doesn't feel as bad. It's potential that some of the damage buffs might be unnecessary after Holy Priest gets corrected. So next week should be very interesting. I'm expecting it to be a much faster game, and a bit more hectic. Holy Paladin is getting a 4% nerf, but I still think it's very good. I think like the healer race up here in this A tier is going to be very tight as far as competitive viability, but I think it's still good. 4% is not major. Marksmanship Hunter, very strong. Putting it at the top of the A tier. I think Boomkin maybe with Frost Mage might be like, these guys are pretty close to each other, honestly, for the range DPS. But Marksman's really good. They're buffing Rapid Fire, which I think is going to make Dark Ranger kind of crazy. I'm actually very excited to try Dark Ranger. I think it's going to be very powerful. Mistweaver Monk, unfortunately, just is lacking a lot of throughput and didn't get any attention. This is one of those things where it's like that kind of... I didn't realize it until like towards the end of the week how weak it felt, especially relative to Holy Priest. But it's just overall throughput, especially as the casted Mistweaver build, felt very low. So I do expect it to struggle. It's not like unplayable, especially maybe with Holy Priest nerfs, so it might be a bit closer, but seems like a struggle. Outlaw Rogue, it's getting buffed on Dispatch. It's getting buffed on its Between the Eyes, which are good because abilities feel like they do nothing. You're just like putting a bunch of APM into a character and just getting nothing out of it. I still kind of think in the hands of a new player, moderate level player, it's still going to feel kind of mid, but an advanced level player might feel very strong. So I'm conservatively putting it here, but it could be higher. Preservation Evoker, I also think is feeling kind of mid. You can get like a little bit of a buff, I think, on your Verdant Embrace through one of the things they decided to let slip through. I was surprised how little they decided to let slip through for Prez compared to what they let slip through for Resto Druid in a PvP situation. But I think Prez is probably a little bit more so towards the bottom, especially with Rogues getting stronger. That is going to be an issue for you. Prot Warrior, very good spec still, along with these guys. Just knockback ability from Dragon Charge is really fun. Does decent damage. Prot Paladin, they are nerfing some of your defensive cooldowns, making them longer, making them not be able to overlap. It's still probably, I swear, it's still probably up here. I don't know what it is. These guys just can't die. No matter how many times they nerf them, they just can't die. I don't know if this is bugged or what, how they keep coming back, but like, I think it's still going to be really good. Now, Resto Druid, I do think is going to be the new S tier healer. It's just receiving remarkably high buffs, like Rejuvenation 15%, Life Bloom I think like 8%, something like that. Just big buffs on Resto Druid. I kind of expect them to be running the show relative to the nerfs that they just applied to Resto Shaman and Holy Priest and Holy Paladin. I do expect Druid to see a resurgence. Rep Paladin I think is also very strong. Maybe people will disagree with me, but I think Rep Paladin is really good. And it's getting more damage, so I think it's gonna be very good. Restoration Shaman is getting a nerf. I still think it's probably, maybe bottom of the A tier after the nerfs. And I've seen some shamans re-rolling to Farseer, which all the nerfs are on Totemic. So maybe they're just trying to equalize the hero talent builds there. Wish they spent a little bit more time with some hero talent builds on other specs, like Boom, Kindle, Chosen is still very much so weak. The Starfire damage is just not there. But Resto Shaman, just trying to equalize those. Seemed a bit surprising. A lot of people seemed surprised by how much they nerfed Resto Shaman. But it is only on Totemic, so I do expect it to be still decent, but maybe like bottom of the A tier. Shadow Priest, they're buffing some of your burst abilities, but unfortunately by a percentage that might not feel too impactful. Shadow Word Madness, Void Volley, I believe, and Shadow Word Death, but it's like relatively about 15% on each of them, and they all don't really hit very hard. They hit anywhere from 30 to 50,000 damage on a 1 million health pool. 15% of that is like, like barely 5 to 10,000 extra damage on each of them. It's probably going to be pretty negligible. I do like that they are targeting those, trying to make you more threatening. I just don't think the numbers are there to carry through. So Shadow, I might be dropping a bit here. Am I going to drop it a bit? I don't know if it's that low. I think maybe like up here, bottom of the A tier, maybe somewhere in here. It could be B tier, but I think its tankiness is carrying it more than anything. Like it can survive to the point where its tickle attacks matter, but you kind of wish that you could be a bit more threatening and maybe a little less tanky. Subtlety Rogue is getting some big buffs, and Subtlety Rogue is one of those specs where I couldn't hone in on where exactly I thought it would be. Like, is it terrible or is it amazing? Some Rogue mains are like, no, it doesn't feel too bad. And then when I was playing against it, I felt like, it's kind of meh. But they're just buffing your damage, your sustained damage. I do think it should be at least A tier. With like assassination in here, like these guys are probably going to go neck and neck. I think could be higher. We'll have to see. I think with the buffs to red, it might be hard to get up into that tier, but we will see. Survival Hunter, they're nerfing the big ability that makes you viable at the moment, which is the Sentinel build with the Chakram. I think that's going to make you feel weak. So I'm kind of dropping Survival down to B tier here. They did try to compensate you, but again, it's 20% on Raptor Strike and Raptor Sweep. Is that enough? Those abilities. Again, I don't think they hit for even 100k, so like 10,000 extra damage on that on a million health pool. I don't know if it's going to have enough impact to really move the needle, unfortunately. Unholy DK, this is one that I couldn't pin in either. I was like, first day I was like, Unholy feels like the worst spec in the game. I literally made a tier list saying it's the worst spec in the game. And then the next couple of days I was like, wait a minute, this isn't that bad. What's going on with this? I don't know if people discovered a new build with it or what was going on, but like, didn't feel too bad. It actually didn't feel too bad. I don't know where to put this one. I'm going to leave it to the last one because I don't know where to put it. Vengeance Demon Hunter, a lot of crowd control, not a lot of damage, probably just kind of mid. Windwalker Monk, this guy got nerfed pretty hard. But maybe they're anticipating tier sets and things like that, and that'll compensate. They don't want it to get to an excessive level. I think it's probably still at least somewhere in the A tier. Still has Mortal Strike. I think its damage is still going to be good. But definitely I don't think it's going to be into the S tier for now, at least. And then Unholy DK. Bro, where do we put you? Are you B or A? I kind of want to go B, but I swear you could easily be A. But I think Frost of the Buffs, it should be better. Should be better. I'm going B with it for now. More of a conservative placement for it. Definitely could be A. Kind of a bit lobby dependent. We'll have to see if casters end up taking over or not. I don't know where I want to put this one, but like, I swear it could be A. This is the hardest one, honestly. This is a prediction. Just giving you an idea, my thoughts, my vibes currently with specializations moving into the reset on Tuesday. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown and the discussion, and I will see you in the next one.